Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are strapping in for a pretty high altitude look at the future of global AI. We're unpacking a dense, and I have to say, a highly provocative analysis that suggests we've, been looking for technological power in all the wrong places.
That's right. Our mission today is really to distill a viewpoint that just completely upends the usual narrative of the AI race.
Yeah, forget the whole idea that power is just going to consolidate into a few huge corporate centers.
Exactly. The force we're looking at argues that the real shift is toward this vast decentralized architecture. It's something that's totally reshaping how intelligence itself is created and distributed globally.
And the analysis kicks off with a really tense premise. It posits that the traditional Western model for AI development is facing a sharp decline. And not because of a lack of innovation, but due to what it calls Western financial exhaustion and bubbles.
And that decline, they claim, stands in stark contrast to this rising force, one that's built on a global and universal scale of open partnership.
In intelligence, yeah.
What's so crucial here is that we're looking at a fundamental architectural disagreement. I mean, the source makes this sweeping claim. Open source, decentralized models are just vastly superior to what it kind of dismissively calls elite centralized clump models.
Clump models, I like that.
Yeah. They're basically arguing that distributed intelligence is simply a more robust, more efficient, and at the end of the day, a better evolutionary structure for AI.
So if the Western model is this isolated, expensive clump, what is this challenger? The source uses this incredible, really vivid metaphor.
The fur ball.
The surface space fur ball, yeah. It says it has grown across the face of the earth, not as a bubble, but as a surface space fur ball. It's expansive, it's fuzzy, and it's totally integrated.
And that metaphor really works because of the sheer scale. When we dig into the source material, it aligns this conceptual network with real-world infrastructure data from 2025. And this global network functions like a neural network. But its neurons aren't biological. They're not even server racks. They're the physical devices we all own and use every single day.
And when you actually put numbers to that concept, it is genuinely staggering. The source is counting 2 billion active PCs and 7 billion smartphones.
Worldwide.
Worldwide. And those become the actor neurons of this entire system.
Precisely. And they're all linked by the internet and satellites, what the source calls the internet synapses. So you have this mesh network of nearly 9 billion devices, all constantly communicating.
But here's the complex part, right?
This is the really complex part. They are actively functioning to pass token weight packets of decentralized LLMs to agentic models.
Okay, whoa, let's slow down right there. That is a massive dose of jargon that, we probably need to unpack.
Yeah, fair enough.
When we talk about my smartphone acting as a neuron, passing token weight packets, what's actually being transferred, is it? Is it the actual learned information, the AI's knowledge, or just like fragments of code?
No, it's the knowledge itself. Packaged into these manageable data structures, those are the token weights, that define what the model understands. Right? Think of it like passing around these tiny concentrated bundles of expertise. And, crucially, this architecture leverages the vast collective computational power of those 9 billion devices all at the same time.
So all the small localized computations, they add up.
They add up to a truly massive distributed engine.
But hold on a second. If the centralized clump models have all this superior dedicated hardware, massive GPU clusters built for one single purpose, how can just distributing the load to billions of weaker consumer devices actually make the whole thing more efficient?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, where is the source pointing to the bottleneck? What's the problem with the centralized models?
That is the absolute core of their efficiency claim. The source argues the bottleneck isn't raw power, it's the method of transfer, the method of sharing. This decentralized model is, they say, structurally superior, not just because it's widespread, but because of how the knowledge actually moves through it.
So tell us more about the how.
It all centers on the use of identical token weights, mega parallel duplex transfers.
Right.
So imagine this massive multi-lane digital highway. Data can flow in both directions at the same time without any collisions across every single lane all at once. That's the mega parallel duplex transfer.
So duplex just means info is flowing both ways constantly. The system is always updating itself and receiving updates at the exact same time.
Exactly. And the source contrasts this perfect simultaneous transfer with what it calls human single stream half duplex symbolic gesture error-prone communication.
Which is us talking.
Which is us talking right now. We take turns, that's half duplex. We use symbolic, often ambiguous language. and we constantly make errors. This network, according to the source, communicates with perfect token fidelity.
That's a really powerful distinction. It's basically claiming that the speed and the fidelity of information sharing in this global network it's like an evolutionary leap beyond any other system, including human ones.
It's an argument that superior architecture, rooted in true parallelism and, ubiquitous open access, fundamentally trumps even the huge concentrated resources of the centralized clumps.
So they're saying the clumps are spending billions just to reinforce what is, at its core, an inferior communication system.
That's the claim, yeah.
So if this is so clearly superior, why hasn't Silicon Valley just adopted it? And this brings us back to that very charged claim from the source about financial exhaustion. If the tech is better, what's bubbling in the Western model that stops them from embracing this?
And this is the critical pivot to the economic analysis. The source sees the Western AI race as, fundamentally fueled by speculative venture capital.
Right, money chasing hype.
Money chasing hype and proprietary ownership. That's what they call the finance bubble. They argue this focus on quick, massive returns from closed systems has structurally limited innovation. The Post says it very plainly. Only the Western finance bubble has run out of funding and power.
And this vacuum is what allows for the geopolitical contrast to emerge?
Yes, this is where the source brings in the role of China as the primary driver of this open ownership model. They view this approach as an intelligence domination that bursts the Western market bubble simply by offering a better, cheaper, more sustainable alternative.
And the rationale for China's success in this, it's framed very ideologically in the source material. It claims China invests in people, not in money. What does that distinction actually mean on the ground in terms of infrastructure and spending?
It means the investment strategy is focused on public infrastructure and open source integration, not on proprietary model development that's just designed for financial extraction. And we have specific financial data cited. China's $125 billion AI investment in 2025 is highlighted. The capital isn't flowing into maintaining a proprietary clump. It's going into building the infrastructure needed to integrate AI into daily life.
So the immediate application of all that money is on open source models and putting AI directly into national infrastructure, not on building those closed, centralized systems.
Absolutely. And the source really stresses that this involves billions of users who are sharing and having input into its AI systems.
Mm-hmm.
That open input structure, that constant flow of data from all those consumer neurons, is what perpetually feeds and refines the surface space furball. The input from the population is the primary resource, not the money you spend on a license.
Now, if that whole analysis wasn't provocative enough, the source then moves into what is maybe its most controversial claim.
Oh, this one's a big one.
It states the Chinese open ownership, open intelligence model is far more democratic.
An extraordinary claim, and one that demands we look at it really impartially, especially given the political systems we're talking about. We have to be very clear. This is the source's unique definition of democracy.
Right. It's not about governance.
Not at all. It's rooted entirely in knowledge, access, and data flow.
So how does the source define this broad spectrum knowledge stack to even justify calling it more democratic?
According to this analysis, it's democratic because the system benefits from and allows access to a knowledge base fed by billions of interconnected users and devices, an immense broad spectrum stack.
And that's presented in direct contrast to the Western models.
Exactly, which the source describes as having limited choice, biased, democratic oligarchies.
Meaning, if a handful of big proprietary companies control the data and the models, then the choices you're given by the AI are inherently limited and biased. Hence, an oligarchy of knowledge.
That is precisely the argument being presented. The source is defining democracy purely through the lens of architectural access and breadth of input. Where the centralized model restricts knowledge to the clump, the open model distributes it across the entire furball.
Making the knowledge itself more accessible and more reflective of the user base.
Yes.
And we can connect this really bold claim back to the real-world performance metrics the source cites. It sees this open environment as fostering superior decentralized access.
And that decentralized architecture is apparently translating into measurable, concrete wins. We looked at the sources, and they cite specific open-source Chinese models, like DeepSeek R1 and Alibaba's Quinn.
So why are those specific models the ultimate proof point for the source's whole argument?
Because they demonstrate that the open ownership framework, the decentralized architecture powered by that $125 billion investment, isn't just some ideological choice, it's an operational strategy that's leading to superior, cheaper, and more accessible intelligence.
They're winning, basically.
They dominate open source benchmarks for affordability and performance. They're proving that the furball is computationally and economically more effective than the clump.
Wow. So this deep dive has really detailed a complete inversion of the accepted wisdom. The source's perspective is that the sheer scale, those 9 billion device neurons, and that foundational choice of architecture, decentralized, open source, are fundamentally restructuring global intelligence power.
And it makes traditional financial speculation, well, sort of irrelevant.
It really forces us to reconsider how we even measure technological superiority. The analysis suggests that we might now measure power not by the size of the isolated closed clump, but by the breadth, the efficiency, and the active input of the distributed surface it covers.
Yeah, it's a completely different metric.
And that leads us to a final provocative thought for you to consider, based directly on this source material. If efficient knowledge transfer really does rely on these mega parallel duplex transfers of tokens across billions of devices, and one major global power is actively integrating AI directly into its national infrastructure with billions of users sharing input, how does that architectural commitment fundamentally change the nature of public knowledge and access in that society compared to one where knowledge stays gatekept by proprietary centralized models? It really becomes a question about whether intelligence is a centralized commodity or a decentralized public utility, something to mull over as you track the next few waves of technological investment.